This lesson is going to be about medieval medicine, and we're taking it one step further. Now, in the previous YouTube video, we looked at the cause of disease. We looked at the religious and supernatural causes. This video is going to take it one step further and look at the cause of disease, the rational concepts of the theory of the four humours. And some of the key words here that might be quite important for this aspect of work. Obviously, four humours, Galen, Hippocrates, and the Articella. So I won't go through the outcomes of this. It's going to be a really quick lesson, a really quick overview of the theory of the four humours. Now, what you need to understand with this idea was this dominated people's thinking in what caused disease in the Middle Ages. Remember, Middle Ages, 1250 to 1500. And you could argue that this reason here was one of the key reasons why there wasn't much change in medicine in this time period. So, the four humours. So this is just a brief overview that I'm going to go through. And again, it isn't that difficult. So a popular idea about medicine, that's important. It was very popular. The church supported it. It was a key idea that people followed in the medieval period. But it wasn't thought of in the medieval period. It was thought of a lot earlier than this. So it was put forward by the Greeks, a Greek doctor, Hippocrates. The theory stated that as the universe was made up of four elements, fire, water, earth, and air, the body must be made up of four humours. So it links to the four elements. And if you have a look at this little diagram down here, these are the four humours. So yellow bile, blood, phlegm, black bile. And then it talks about the elements that it's linked to. So fire, air, water, and earth. So this is the concept. This right here is the concept of the theory of the four humours. Now, the way in which your humours were changed, now a lot of people tend to mix this up. A lot of reasons why your humours were changed is created by the foods that you eat. Now, the reason why this idea was so popular, especially in the Middle Ages, is it could explain every type of illness. So when new ideas did come along, it was really difficult for people to agree with them, and it was really hard for people to move away from this concept. It was an idea that was very popular for many, many years, decades. So just an overview again, the four humours are, you've got blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. And these are some of the things that you would potentially see these humours in. But as I say, it links to this idea here that you've got four elements and they all link to something. Now this concept here, just circle these here, the words hot, dry, cold, and wet, that links to what we look at later when the theory of the four humours is taken one step further and developed. So that's the concept. That's what the theory of the four humours were. Now I'm going to take it one step further. Now there's some questions here that you can consider while we watch this, but these are just some ideas that you can think of. So I'll read through this and pick out some of the key points. Once again, I'll try and explain some of the more difficult terms. So just remember, follow these questions as well, because they are quite important. So let's take it. So the theory of the four humours was created by an ancient Greek physician named Hippocrates. That name straight away, very, very important. He was the guy that created it. Now, one of the problems that students have with this course is that they think that Hippocrates is still alive. He's not. Obviously, this is the 5th century. Hippocrates was dead by the time we get to the Middle Ages. The word humour comes from the Greek word of fluid humon. Again, not that important to know, but it's just a good little thing if you ever get it in a general knowledge quiz when you're a bit older. Hippocrates was very careful to observe all the symptoms of his patients and record them. So the way in which Hippocrates did this was through observation. And the theory of the four humours fitted what he saw. So when Hippocrates jotted down what he saw from his patients, it very much fits in with the idea of the theory of the four humours. The key thing is, though, he observed all the symptoms, he wrote them down, he recorded them, and then he came up with his findings. So in a way, this was the best that you could probably get in the 5th century without the extreme technology that we have today. So Hippocrates developed the idea, started the idea, and the next individual that we mention a lot in the Middle Ages is Galen. He was a physician in ancient Rome during the 2nd century CE and liked the other ideas of Hippocrates and developed them further. So Galen developed Hippocrates' ideas a lot further. Galen was a physician in a gladiator school, okay, the ones that are fought in like colosseums, and later became the personal physician of the Roman emperor. So realistically, Galen had lots of time to experiment. He had lots of time to look at the ideas of Hippocrates, ponder the philosophy behind them, and write things down. And by the time he died, he left behind a very large body of works, more than 350 books. And these ideas very much were used significantly in this period, in the Middle Ages. The fact he had 350 books shows that he's going to have a big impact on this time period, because these books were going to dominate people's ideas. But how did Galen develop it? So Galen developed the theory of the Four Humours to include the idea of balancing the humours by using the theory of opposites. So the theory of opposites is an idea that really did make treatment quite dangerous in this time period. The theory of opposites, it says, for example, he suggested that if you had too much phlegm, which was linked to water and cold, then it could be treated with chili, which would make the patient warmer after it was eaten, balancing those humours. So he believed that by eating something or doing something, by balancing those humours out, you could make yourself better. And that led to some really dangerous treatments, which we'll look at later. One of them being bloodletting, where one of them would literally cutting your vein. And that could cause all sorts of problems. It could cause the patient to potentially bleed out. Okay. Galen also theorised that the circulatory system circulated blood that was generated in the liver. So he thought that blood was created in the liver and the blood was distributed around the body. Now, we're going to look at this later when we look in the Renaissance period and we look at Harvey. But Galen's ideas very much, now he did use some form of dissection, but his ideas really weren't what people theorised later in the Renaissance period, mainly because, once again, Galen didn't have that technology that we have in a lot later on. The theory was popular because it was very detailed and could be used to explain almost any kind of illness, physical or mental. It was important that the theory covered almost every type of illness that occurred, because there was no other scientific explanation for the cause of disease. Often, physicians twisted what they saw to fit in with the logic of the theory. So it was an idea that was very difficult to go away from. Okay, and if you look at these 5 questions here, how did the Greek Hippocrates come up with the theory of the Four Humours? Why did the Roman Galen have the time to experiment and write extensively? Extensively means in detail. How did Galen develop Hippocrates' ideas further? Why was the theory of the Four Humours so popular? And using our belief of today's reason for disease, what is wrong with the Four Humours? So if you consider these 5 questions, and you can just answer them, it's something for you to consolidate the knowledge that we've just been through. So far we've gone through the main concept of the theory of the Four Humours. I'm going to go back to those in a minute. But this is just another little task that we can consider. These were other rational ideas about the cause of disease. And by rational, we mean something that has some element of explanation and it can be proven to a degree. Okay? The first one, miasma, and the second one, urine charts. Now, some people get a little bit umming and ahhing about this. Urine charts is a cause of disease that helps you identify, what's wrong with you, diagnosis, that could be important. So, a miasma, or plural miasmata, was bad air that was believed to be filled with harmful fumes. So it was basically seen as like a toxic air that could cause damage to people. Hippocrates and Galen both wrote about miasmata and suggested that swamps corpses, and other rotting matter. So I'll just keep adding these in. Rotting matter could transmit disease. Smells and vapours like miasmata were also associated with God. A clean and sweet smelling home was a sign. So a clean and sweet smelling home was a good sign. It was a sign of, trying to look at the bottom, was a spiritual cleanliness. And incense was burned in churches to purify the air. Homes that smelt badly suggested sinfulness. If you had a smelly home, or if you yourself was quite smelly, then this suggested that you were a bad person, corruption, and if a person was unwashed, other people would avoid them. So people believe that the smell really did link to the cause of disease. If you breathed in bad miasmata, bad miasma, you could contract the disease. Now, although medieval physicians, this next one, urine, this is one that people really do get a little bit unsure about. And as I said, it's not a cause of disease, okay? Medieval physicians didn't actually, this first one, didn't blame people's urine for making them ill. That's important that you understand that. People's urine wasn't making them sick, but they did carefully examine the urine in order to make their diagnosis. Now, physicians only diagnosed in the Middle Ages, they didn't actually treat. But it was thought to be one of the best ways to check up on the balance of someone's humours. By looking at the urine and urine charts to be able to look at how their humours were at this stage. Sample of a patient's urine could be sent to a physician where it be examined and compared with, as I just said, a urine chart. The physician would carefully check the colour, thickness, smell, and they'd even taste the urine in some cases before making the diagnosis. So even though the urine chart is not a cause, it's a diagnosis, it basically backs up the theory of humours, because they use the urine chart to link to concept of the four humours. Okay, so this, as we say, it's an overview of the cause of disease, and what you've had so far is you've had the religious, you've had the supernatural, you've had the rational four humours, and you've had other concepts that are very important. Lastly, why were the ideas so popular? There are just 5 things that you could talk about. If you ever got a question about why there was little progress, in the eyes of the people, it explained every type of illness. This was the only idea that had some sort of rational thinking. People had been brought up with the idea, so any new idea was seen as an insult to Galen and also Hippocrates. You could see your four humours when you were sick. Now, not all of them. If you vomited and you see, bile, then it's proof that the four humours is a thing. The idea was supported by the church. Now, the next YouTube video we do is going to look at why there was little progress in the ideas of disease. But people who criticised it could be in trouble. For example, Roger Bacon criticised Galen's ideas and he ended up being put in prison. You're not allowed to disagree with the church's ideas. Very simple. What we looked at in the previous YouTube video suggests that. No alternatives at the time. There was no way to disprove it by finding other methods. And the concept was popularised in educational textbooks such as the Artistella, who had Galen's ideas. Now, we're going to take this one step further in the next YouTube video, consider why was there little progress in this period in the ideas and the concepts of the cause of disease.